Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Founded in Australia in 2009, Ento is a powerful workforce management solution that allows shift-based workforces to manage rostering, time and attendance, leave, and onboarding from one centralized platform. In this episode, I meet Peter Vigilante, Ento's Canadian country manager, and in a wide-ranging interview talk about how this young company has come to this market to help retailers solve issues around their hourly workforce, mainly on the front lines. Peter takes us through recent market research by Ento, telling us what keeps retail HR leaders awake at night, including the speed of offer execution in today's fast-paced and highly competitive labor market.
Often come across with clients is they just want to take their paper-based form or process and just digitize it. And we're like, no, don't do that. You're not going to get any benefits. You're not going to solve any problems. It's just taking something that's already a little bit slow or a little bit cumbersome and you're putting it into a web version of that. There's no real benefit. So let's take a step back. What problem are you actually trying to solve? How can we do that?
Peter, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, Michael. Great to be here. I'm so excited to chat to you this morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Where am I finding you in the world today? Where are you located? I think you're in Canada, right? Where are you located?
Yeah, my accent might deceive you, but I'm not actually in Australia. I'm in not so sunny Toronto today. But yes, I've made my way across from Australia, Melbourne to Canada, Toronto, and loving it.
Well, that's a great place to start our discussion. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey. What brought you here to Canada from lovely Melbourne, and let's start there.
Yeah, thanks. I've always been wanting to travel with work and have work for an organization that will take me somewhere overseas. And at Ento, it's finally given me the opportunity. So I've headed across from working at Ento for about 2 or 3 years to now here in Canada to be the country manager, which is pretty exciting. I've always been working in the software industry back home in Australia, where I've worked with all different types of organizations to help implement software for them, from kind of like the healthcare industry all the way through to asset management and today workforce management. I am really loving Toronto so far. Everyone is so nice here. I've really enjoyed, chatting to people working at cafes and things like that, and everyone's been super nice. I've actually even managed to score some free donuts and Starbucks while I've been here as well. So I don't know if that's just me and my Aussie accent convincing people to give me free stuff, or just the lovely natured Canadians.
Yeah, fellow member of the Commonwealth. So listen, welcome to Canada. Now, looking at your background, you've got a depth of experience in workforce management. But where did you start your career? Were you oriented towards technology, and what pointed you in the direction when you were starting your career, or as you progressed through the career? Was it just opportunity? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, to be honest, if we go all the way back to my younger days, I actually started working out in hospitality and retail, funnily enough. Not surprising when you're a university student. It's a great industry to work in with flexible hours. And that's where I did that's while I was studying my IT degree. And that's always been a passion of mine. It's always been technology, always been software. Right. And I had the opportunity to start implementing asset management software, and then moved across to the healthcare industry. This was a really interesting one because it exposed me to the high pressure that these workers are under to, get to a client's home, to perform a service for them, deliver them the best quality service, get back in their car, drive to the next client's home, and be on point and deliver that high quality service. And it was working for that particular organization where they had a great system there that involved a workforce management component where it did all the scheduling and it did all the routing. And that was kind of where my interest started in the workforce management area. And now it's led me to Ento, where it's purely workforce management across any type of industry you can think of, from retail, hospitality, transportation, education, you name it. We've got a solution in there to help these businesses.
Well, we'll get to Ento in a minute. Just from you've expressed what it's like to live as a civilian, so to speak, in Canada. Are you noticing, or do you have any comments on the business environment? I mean, we generally think between Canada and Australia, I mean, there's similar geographies, similar backgrounds, that the business environments are fairly similar. What's been your experience so far, just from how you experience clients, prospects, and the business environment?
I've indeed noticed that there's some similarities between organizations here and back at home, and the problems they've been facing just through conversations I've been having with them. It's really interesting that it's the same things, and these problems haven't been solved for these clients yet. And we're talking about things like, budget control, saving, cost on labor. We're talking about compliance and making sure that, you're paying people correctly and not breaching any of the collective agreements, as well as engaging staff and making sure that, they're sticking around and, the onboarding and first impressions experience is on point.
It's interesting. I guess I'm often asked to comment on the differences the U.S. and Canada, and I often say there's far more similarities than differences. There's some different industries here. Certainly, I mean, you've got retail cannabis here, which is a whole industry that simply doesn't exist in Australia, right? So there's some different takes on it, but generally that would be your experience. Yeah, more similarities than differences.
Yeah, correct. And that's one of the main reasons why Ento decided to hit Canada as its first international expansion, was for those similarities. We thought, hey, we've solved all these problems in Australia, and let's solve the next best country, which is Canada.
All right. Well, let's talk about Ento. New name for some, certainly. It was for me. Tell me all about it. Obviously Australian based, but tell me scope and scale, where and how you operate, and what makes what the expertise is, and what makes you different in the, so to speak, in the competitive set of who you are and who you compete against and who you want to be.
Yeah, sure. So Ento was established in about 2009, so we're mature in the market, and it's actually an interesting story how we got started. Our founder and CEO at the time was dating someone, his girlfriend, and she was complaining about how the bar she was working at didn't have any scheduling or rostering software. So he was running a web design business at the time and shifted to making a web app to solve the problem for his girlfriend, and now it's gone on to solve that problem for many, many more organizations.
Anyway, I often experience talking to people that this intersection of the personal and professional. There you go. There it is again. Right?
Yeah, it's important to have some sort of connection to solving that problem and being, in the real life aspect of it. It's not until you experience it firsthand that you can understand how to solve it properly, I found. So
that's where it started. So tell me how it's developed, and when was that? Did you say a date?
That was in 2009, around then when that all started. And yeah, we've been very successful in Australia and expanded into New Zealand as well. We've got about, I think, 300 or 400 clients at the moment, where we're managing millions and millions of shifts every day across these different clients. As I mentioned before, vast array of industries, retail, hospitality, childcare, education, manufacturing, and anything kind of in between is where we can help you out.
Fantastic.
It's really for those organizations that have like a schedule or a roster, or it's shift-based work, where we come in and help all those deskless workers, is the new hype term for them.
Oh. So when you say deskless workers, is your system kind of being asked to flex for planning for head office versus shift workers, or is it still mostly the sweet spot is the kind of hourly workforce, so to speak?
Yeah, so when we go into organizations, for example, a retail organization, they've always got a head office, back office kind of staff component to help, run the operations of that business. Whilst the main focus is normally always, the in-store staff, we're often seeing that they're wanting to use a system like Ento to engage with those back office staff. And it might be something like the onboarding process or, the messaging capability, just to have that consistent across all staff in the organization. And we've actually got some clients who are getting their back office staff to fill in timesheets and clock in and out of their office jobs as well, which is really
just to maintain who's where and when, right? For clocking in for different reasons, right? There's
that, and there's the ability to then report on your entire organization, labor cost, for example, and what business units are costing what, and it's very interesting when you take a step back and you look at the whole organization and go, where else can we apply the same type of solution to help solve similar problems?
Like a lot of businesses, one of the things you did when you came into the market is try to assess, try to survey, and you literally surveyed the market. And one of the things that brought you to my attention is a survey you just published. So we'll get to that in a second. This survey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the tradecraft, what you intended to achieve with the survey, and how you went about surveying the Canadian marketplace.
Yeah, when we decided to come to Canada, we thought, hey, let's find out more about this market. We've got our own research that we've done, and we've got inklings that we're pretty confident that the problems that are in Australia and New Zealand are similar to what's in Canada. Let's prove that. So let's go out and engage a trusted third party to run a survey for us. So we engaged Maru Public Opinion, and they ran a survey for us across about 450 different Canadian HR decision makers. And we asked them all sorts of different questions to try and understand the problems they're facing in the current climate. And we got some really interesting learnings out of that.
And when were the questions asked? I know the survey came out fairly recently, but give me a sense of time period. When were these folks answering questions from you?
Yeah, so the survey was run just a few months ago, so the data's quite fresh.
Perfect.
Which is really interesting because things are changing so fast with the lifting of COVID restrictions and businesses trying to get back to normal. So, if you'd surveyed an organization, 6 months ago or 12 months ago, it's completely different scene we're in now. So it's quite fresh survey data.
Yeah, it's the recencies. It's always been fairly important to have a survey that's recent, but never more so than now, right? Everyone's trying to figure out. All right, so hit the high notes for me. What are the top kind of 3-5 things that you took away from your survey that you want to share with us?
Yeah, it was really interesting. We asked the HR leaders about the expectations they're putting on their managers who are out there running these workforces or these stores, and it was really interesting because about 86% of them said that the expectations had not changed at all, which for me, I thought, hold on, the whole scene's changed. The expectations that you have in your managers surely should be different. They're managing a totally different climate post-COVID. So for you to be expecting the same is very interesting, especially because there's so many extra pressures that managers have now in the current climate where there's changing COVID regulations, or hopefully not changing anymore. The labour supply is still very volatile where, it's hard to find people and they're chopping and changing between jobs like no tomorrow, as well as we all know, inflation's rising and, recessions are looming for various countries around the globe. So that was one aspect of it that we saw out of the survey that was very interesting. One of the other areas we saw interesting out of the survey was the digital adoption opinion of these leaders. And it's true that whilst COVID has forced a lot of digital adoption on many organizations, some of the leaders have indicated that for them, it's areas like employee engagement, onboarding and offboarding and scheduling that are still key to their digital strategy and have yet to implement a solution to solve those problems.
So it's still a high need from the retailers, right? They're still looking for these solutions. So I guess I guess if anything, it validates coming to a market like this. And also, you talk the work-life balance is interesting. So what was your assessment around what people are looking for? I mean, and I guess with your experience in this, has it changed from their priorities versus pre-COVID? I mean, you got some interesting numbers here, right? 52% changed their, 52% reported they changed their policy to include better work-life balance. That's a big number, right? It's funny when you do these surveys, I'll say broadly pre-COVID, you'd see single-digit movements and be, oh, that's interesting. You're 86%, 52%. Like, these are big numbers, right? There's a lot going on in your space, right?
Yeah, organizations have finally kind of woken up to the fact that, you just can't treat staff like you've been doing in the past. And COVID now has demanded that you be more accommodating to what staff or employees need and want to be able to be an effective and happy worker. To be honest, I was a little surprised with how low that number was, in my opinion, because COVID's affected, most organizations and industries. So for only 52% to say they've changed their policies, how does the other, 50 whatever percent or 40 whatever percent think they can get away without doing it?
Yeah. Well, I took a different tack when I read that. It was like, there's been a lot of work that's happened. So maybe that reflects a pretty good state of the industry. In other words, we're over halfway there. That could be another way to look at it, right? That we're 52% saying they changed, but maybe the other 35-40% have already changed. You know what I mean? Who knows, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a good sign that change has been made and people have recognized it. It would be even more interesting to know, as you said, does that mean that's the final 40 whatever percent left, or they've already done it?
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I'm sure you'll come up with that in your ongoing conversations. Now, as you take all of this, where does Ento fit into this? So you take all these numbers, and if we break them down a bit, where do you add value? Why are you, and how are you different? And when you come in, and let's say you're talking to prospective retailers who are looking for a solution, how do you address each of those, and what are the key, your key value points? You say, listen, love this survey. It tells us, maybe it tells you a few new things, but it also tells you that there's a demand for what you sell. How do those conversations go? Tell me about that.
Yeah, we've looked at that survey data and aligned it to the features and benefits that Ento provides, and it's really around finding areas that allow managers to free up time from long, convoluted, paper-based, unautomated processes that take them away from focusing on managing their staff and giving them the attention that they need so that they're happy and they don't leave, for example.
Right.
So we're talking about things like moving to automated scheduling or just making the scheduling process easier. We're talking about the onboarding process as well, where interestingly enough, we're hearing from organizations we're talking to that if they're not quick to make an offer, get an offer on the table, have a contract in front of an employee to sign, they've lost that opportunity with that employee. They've gone elsewhere. That someone else has been on their toes, offered them another offer with more enticing conditions. So with our onboarding solution, you're able to quickly get that out to the new employee for them to sign and agree.
That's interesting, because I have heard that retailers are making like offers at the moment, and then speed is of the essence is basically what you're reflecting back to me, right? Is that we'll help you get that done quickly, because if not, you're going to lose somebody. And I guess it also is the case that and this is not necessarily new to COVID, that people would show up, sign up, and then just not show up for the job. But does your software help kind of get that done quickly and kind of hopefully reduce that, let's call that the ghosting impact, right?
Yeah, it definitely speeds up that process, because we're all using electronic contracts and digital signatures to do this now. So there's no excuse why you can't, sign in your mobile phone while you're sitting on the train heading into the city to accept your job. But then we take it the next level, and you've signed your contract, but like if you don't start your role for 4 weeks, how are you going to engage with that employee and keep them excited and keep them on board with the organization? So that's where our onboarding solution will drip feed them different onboarding content. So it might be a YouTube video that they can watch to learn more about what their first day in the role is going to be, or it might be a user guide or a manual they can download to read about, how to use different equipment or something like that. So
just constantly touching base with them, which is a pretty heavy lift. A pretty heavy lift for the HR team without this kind of technology, right? Then that's a lot of work. Sounds like you kind of create content, and we'll make sure it gets to the right people to keep them, have you a better chance of that employee actually showing up to the front door. Yeah,
not only will they show up, but they'll be excited, they'll be informed as well, and educated and ready to go. Fantastic.
Now, who is your product right for? Is it give me a sense of size of retailer, and whether that's sales or number of store, number of employees. What's your sweet spot on those kind of metrics for the folks listening?
Yeah, so retailers with more than one physical location would be we would start with. Yeah, okay. So if you've got one, you're probably a bit too small to use Ento, just because of the depth and breadth of the feature and functionality might be a bit overwhelming. By all means, we'll take you on the journey if you want to, but we've found the sweet spot is where there's multiple locations. We found there's a certain level of maturity in those organizations, and they're a good fit for Ento. We then go up all the way to retailers with hundreds of locations with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 staff working across these locations. So we've got that enterprise capability.
And what's the business model? Is it, let's talk about affordability at the, I'm a mid-small retailer, 5-10 stores versus enterprise. You have different platforms with different affordabilities. How does that work?
Yeah, so all the affordability is based on a per user per month kind of concept. So depending on how many different features you use in our software, there's a different pricing for that. And it's designed so that you get the most out of whatever kind of package you select. Some of our competitors I've come across really have quite limiting packages where there's barely anything in the cheapest version or the free version. And you don't really get any benefit from using that because all the good features are hidden. So you get all that with us. There's only a few things which you can opt in and out of, which is quite different from the competitors. But where we really shine is the consulting services or the implementation services, where we come into your organization, we'll actually review your existing business processes and optimize those processes alongside the Ento implementation.
And is that bundled in? Is that over and above? Is that included? Is that just part of making sure your customers are a success, kind of a success management process?
Correct. That's the only way we do it, because it's the only way we can guarantee success with Ento is having those bundled consulting services. So what we've often come across with clients is they just want to take their paper-based form or process and just digitize it. And we're like, no, don't do that. You're not going to get any benefits. You're not going to solve any problems. It's just taking something that's already a little bit slow or a little bit cumbersome, and you're putting it into a web version of that. There's no real benefit. So let's take a step back. What problem are you actually trying to solve? How can we do that using Ento from scratch?
And this is kind of one of those how big is the breadbasket question, but on average, how long from start to finish is an engagement to get people up and running? I mean, the software is pretty, it's probably cloud-based, so there's not a lot of big install, but just to get everybody oriented and learned how to use the software, what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, the implementation is interesting because from a technical and configuration system side, we can have the system up and running, fully configured within about 2 days. So we're finding that the system itself isn't where most of the time spent. A lot of it's with the organization's own internal change management, their own training, rallying of the troops, getting the right people, the resources available to help with, deciding what configuration.
The soft strategy stuff, so to speak, versus the tech stuff.
Yeah, the tech's easy. Yeah. We've solved that. We've made it simple enough that it's not what the hold-up's going to be. It's where you should be focusing your time on the right things, the people, the processes, the training, not the tech. Let us solve that for you. Make that process really quick and easy and simple.
Right on. All right. Well, I'll put links to the survey results in the show notes. But if I want to get in touch with you or learn more about Ento, where do I go?
Yeah, head to our website. It's probably the best place. So it's ento.com. So that's ENTO for those that have no idea how to spell Ento. I've never heard of it before.
ENTO, yeah, ENTO.
That's it.
All right.
Head to our website and you can read all about Ento. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can do so through there.
And now, are you a LinkedIn person? Like you're going to want to build your network here, right? Are you on LinkedIn?
I sure am. LinkedIn.com/in/pvigilante. You can come through to my profile or just search for Peter Vigilante. It's a unique surname, so I'm sure you'll find me pretty easily.
Well, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Listen, Peter, thanks so much for joining me on The Voice of Retail. Interesting times for sure. Welcome to Canada. It's great to have new insights and new opportunities, new options, and you bring a lot to the market. So welcome again, and wish you much continued success. And let's keep in touch. And thanks for sharing the learnings from the survey as well.
Thanks so much, Michael. Look forward to many more free donuts in Starbucks.
Thanks for tuning into this special episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, be sure and click and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically twice a week. And check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Conversations with Commerce Next podcast, and the Food Professor podcast with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. Last but not least, if you're into barbecue, check out my all-new YouTube barbecue show, Last Request Barbecue, with new episodes each and every week. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of M.E. LeBlanc Company and Maven Media. And if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Have a safe week, everyone.